start with, this is a devotion from a few days ago from Christ in Our Home. I think that's the one it is. And mercy in the mess. Some of you probably wrote this already, but I'll just start out. We say, have mercy on us a whole bunch of times in church, and we want God to have mercy on us, but do we have mercy on others? And so it says, people hurt one another. Creation cries out at our unfaithfulness and stewarding it. We get into messes every day and ask God for help. One disaster after another may cause us to lose faith. Yet Psalm 116 reminds us God is merciful. It talks about healers who tend to sick and wounded bodies, firefighters, disaster relief, refugees given new life in a foreign land, grieving the cross. And we thank God who is at work in this mess, offering fresh mercy in the form of the cross, the sunrise, and the promise of new life in heaven. Meanwhile, God calls us to be Christ-like in facing tragedy, to embody mercy in a hurting world, desperate for healing. And that's the way a lot of us feel, especially before the elections and with all the wars going on. And so the prayer, it will start with, have mercy on me, O God, have mercy on us. Stir up our hearts so that we might embody your mercy in a hurting world. So once I started to study these parables, I realized it's really about mercy. Not just being lost and found, but God's mercy as He accepts us, brings us back into the fold. And our mercy that we can show to others, like the mercy that the Father had to the prodigal son. So let's go ahead and start. Luke 15, verse 1 and 2. Okay, so 1 and 2. Who would like to read that?
Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus, but the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them."
Okay, so I always considered that kind of like not necessary to part of the parable, but I've been thinking about it explains why Jesus is telling these parables. And so who are the parables for? Are they for the tax collectors and sinners, or are they for the Pharisees and lawyers, teachers of the law? Who are they for?
Or are we all sinners?
All of the above? Yeah. And for us too. Okay. So there's things that we can learn from it, things that the tax collectors and sinners and Pharisees. So who are the sinners? What does it mean by sinners? I was thinking about that this morning. Is a sinner any Jew that's not a Pharisee? Is that a sinner? Or is it are we all sinners?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We are. I don't know what this was in.
Yeah, what did Luke mean? So I think he considered the tax collectors to be doing wrong too. And the sinners could be prostitutes. Maybe there were some people there that were shady characters.
I don't think they have any shady. I think it's just the ordinary people.
Ordinary people. Okay, good.
That would be my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, and then we start with the parable on verse 3 to 7. Who would like to read the parable of the lost sheep?
I'll read it.
Okay.
Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulder and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep." I tell you that in the same way there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who do not repent.
And you all have seen the picture of the shepherd with the sheep over his back, over his shoulders like that. And so we know that sheep are notoriously stupid animals. They just follow. You're supposed to just follow along like sheep, right? So we have different metaphors, like he's just following like a sheep. He's not thinking for himself. He's just like a dumb sheep. So I wonder how the Jewish people liked being compared to sheep. But it's all through the Bible. One Bible study I did, I was like 94 verses that mentions sheep or shepherds. And of course, David was a shepherd, and he was king. And what other shepherds do we have in the Bible? Besides David. What other shepherds do we have in the Bible besides David? There's
Moses.
Moses, yeah. Jacob took care of his father's
Jacob and Esau, both of them. Abraham. I'm sure Isaac did it too, but I'm sure he had helpers.
What about the first disciples, the first ones that came to see the baby Jesus?
Shepherds in Bethlehem.
Yeah, and then they went out and they were supposed to tell everyone what they had seen. So they were, I think they were disciples because they went and told all these people to spread the word. Okay, and then so kind of have a picture of the 99 sheep just sitting there, you know, their shepherd is gone. But in the Bible they talk about the sheepfold. And I was reading this book, I'm only about halfway through, but it's Philip Keller, and it's A Shepherd Looks at the 23rd Psalm. And then there's The Shepherd Looks at the Good Shepherd, and The Shepherd Looks at the Lamb of God. And the whole thing on that. So it's like 3 books. It's a trilogy, and you want to pass this down to Carolyn here. So the sheepfold was actually a ring of rocks, or like a U-shaped ring of rocks with an opening where the shepherd would lie down. So that's where, when Jesus talks about he is the gate, so the shepherd would lie down in the opening, and it would just be a ring of big rocks. They didn't have a lot of wood to build fences in most areas of Israel, as far as I can tell. Although some of them were made of wood. And so actually, the 99 sheep just stayed right there in the sheepfold. They might have been pretty well trained, or kind of sheep are kind of skittish. They don't want to go away from where they're supposed to be. Okay, anyway, I recommend this book. I get copies of the first one. The Shepherd Looks at the 23rd Psalm. My favorite copies to probably give people like Janelle when she had her surgery, and I had Amazon send one to Misty when she was at home before she went to California and Arizona. And let's see, anything else about the shepherd? And
They were the lowest class of people.
yeah,
And were not trusted to be clean and pretty much looked down on.
okay. Except maybe for the pig farm, the pig herders, but they wouldn't
Well,
be
you're
Jewish.
not supposed to be having pigs.
Yeah, Jewish people wouldn't be pig herders, except for the prodigal son. Yeah. Oh, you don't really
He wasn't
herd
in
pigs.
Israel when he did that.
Yeah, yeah. So this is supposed to, so I thought my Bible study book didn't have too much about this parable, and I think there's a lot to it. So I asked AI, you go to chatgpt.com, and I asked it for a summary of, or what about the, just explain the lost sheep. And so it says that it shows 3 things: God's love for every individual, regardless of how lost they are; the joy of redemption, how happy the shepherd was when he got the sheep back; and the value of seeking the lost, that the angels rejoice, that there's more joy in heaven and everything for that too. And this kind of reminds me of the story of Humpty Dumpty, which some people say is an example of like for homeless men, they're broken. Something's broken. Or women too. And people that are struggling, something's broken. So you just, and Humpty Dumpty, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again, and that's pretty much the end of the story. But in the Lost Sheep, the story continues that the sheep did get back into the fold. So I like this story better than the Humpty Dumpty story to show that, we need to reach out and have mercy on people and sheep and dogs and cats, that have gone astray, like stray dogs or the adopting dogs. But no, that's nothing to do with this really. Anything else? Yeah, Jay?
I have a footnote here that I wrote when Pastor read. I'm not quite sure, I'm going to read it anyway. And he made the comment that only in Luke was there talk about women.
Yeah, so that's for the lost coin.
Right, and
Yeah.
only he said only in Luke did that happen.
Yeah.
So I thought that was engaged.
Yeah, that's good. I was going to mention that for the coin too. Good. And especially the woman in the lost coin story is kind of a metaphor for God, because God is finding us out of the lost coin. Michael?
It's very interesting to think of why did the sheep leave, and one of the things I appreciate about the book, the other book that she's reading, is you can have some pretty rotten sheep, and then the other is to think of what the shepherd went through to find that sheep, which there's an old song, there were 99 that safely lay, and in the shepherd of the fold, and it talks about how difficult it was for the shepherd to find the sheep.
Yeah, to leave the 99. Yeah, I was remembering that too, about how there's always one sheep that goes astray, right? The rest of the sheep follow along and they're docile, but one has his own little idea. He has a different drummer. And he's like, there might be something cool down that path. And so in some cases, the shepherd might just say, well, that sheep can't be in the flock because it's wandering off on its own. It's kind of like you have to get rid of it, let it go, But,
Well, that's because they're herd animals. Somebody might follow the old goat.
yeah.
I mean, that's where the Judas goat comes from, is the goat will lead the sheep into the slaughter.
Yeah. And then too, what happens, sometimes they do find a sheep, like in the mountains, that a domestic sheep that has gotten lost or something. What happens is their coat just keeps growing and they don't get shorn, and they become so big and heavy that they can hardly walk along the trail and find any kind of food or anything. So there have been stories of that where the rangers find some lost sheep and they have to, get it sheared and it's all matted and everything because they're grown to be sheared for their wool, and their wool just keeps growing apparently if you don't shear them. Okay. And then, one more thing about sheep. So as a teacher in the classroom for, 20 years almost, there was always one student, the first day of school when I looked at my roster and I looked around the class, I always pick out at least one student who was the lost sheep, who wouldn't get any seat right away, or hers, it's a pretty big girl. And I would always beam in on that and learn their name right away and pay them special attention. Because I knew if I didn't, they would lead the whole class astray. The whole class would be getting up and walking around while I was talking or doing something they were supposed to be doing. So you have to kind of find that lost sheep right away and bring it back. Do you have an experience to share about that? You were the lost sheep. You were the one that was wandering around. I know some kids, well, especially in middle school, they just can't, sit very long. They have to get up, and it just doesn't work in a classroom. You have one or two kids wandering around like a lost sheep. Okay, anything else about the shepherd? Okay. The last coin. Michael, would you read that one about the last coin?
Or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Doesn't she light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she calls her friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I have found my lost coin." In the same way, I tell you, there is rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents.
Okay, and that's where we find, like Michael said, where the woman comes in, because there aren't, even in Luke, I don't think there's any other parables with a woman. Most of them it's you were teaching about parables. sends his son, and stuff like that. It's always men. So women get a little bit of credit here, but at least it's kind of funny. It's the woman that's the one that cleans the house, right? You couldn't have a man sweeping the floor and cleaning the house. It has to be a woman. And how much do you think a coin is worth here? 10 silver coins.
I don't know, but I know that it was kind of the headdress for the bride, because if something happened to the men, she had something to live on. And since a penny, a denarius, is enough to make a living for a day, I would think silver would be significant.
Yeah. So on the back, there's a footnote. It says a drachma, that was the original translation, is worth one drachma is worth 1 day's wage. So what would that be now? $100 for a labor, $200. Probably less than between 100 and 200 a day's wage. Well, if you took minimum wage, around
$25 an hour in Seattle, that's $200 for 8 hours.
Is that the minimum wage in Seattle?
Well, I know that's when they're offering it.
Oh, really?
It's 19.
Wow. Okay, let's see, anything else about the last coin? The explanation? Yeah, so the first two parables here, they have an explanation from Jesus. Sometimes in his parables, it's just up to us to try to figure it out. Let's see, so what did AI say about this? Is that it's pretty much the same as the other. The value of the individual. It's kind of like if the people didn't get the message from the first parable, Jesus thought, well, maybe I'll try another parable with coins. Maybe they don't understand about sheep, they'll understand about money, about coin. And so the value of the individual, God values every person, the joy of recovery, and it's nice to have a joyful parable. Apparently, I wasn't looking at Luke 14, but I read in my Bible study book, it says it's a contrast to Luke 14, because Luke 14 is more about judgment, and this one's more about mercy and joy. And diligence in seeking, persistence, resilience, it's like, it's good for those of us that, we don't want to give up on somebody. We want to keep trying. And then we get discouraged. Oh, what's the use? I've done my best. I've tried. I just give up. Like Humpty Dumpty. All the these men couldn't put it back together again. So think about the woman with the coin, and she didn't give up. She kept looking, and she lit the lamp. And the lamp could stand for, or could represent truth, or just having light on the subject. Trying to find out more about it. What is the problem with this person? How can we help them? Maybe I'm going about it the wrong way. If I can't help this person the way I try to, maybe I should try a different approach. So diligence, persistence. And I came across the word revivify somewhere. I wrote it down, or I put it on my phone. So vivi, the Greek word, I think, refers to life, like in vivo, something, it's alive. So revivify is to restore life, and that would kind of be, her life was restored, like Michael said, this could be part of her dowry. And so the coin is found, the sheep is found, joy, diligence, the importance of each person, and the joy that comes from finding and restoring what is lost. It reinforces the message of God's immense love and dedication to every individual. And I think a lot about the homeless men and women, but in the paper today there's an article on the front page about those that are incarcerated, because those are lost sheep too, lost coins, and about a new program from Norway. So if you get a chance to see the Seattle Times, those lost sheep are in the prisons and jails. And could we be lost sheep too? Sometimes? Part of our lives or part of our day? Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we're ready for the parable of the lost son. So sometimes we call it the prodigal son, but I like this translation, the lost son. So then it all fits together neatly as 3 lost parables, the lost chapter. And first time I heard that, I thought, oh, did they find it in the chapter? There was a lost chapter? I didn't even hear about it. Will this be like at the end of the book, or will it be in the middle? But it's kind of in the middle here. All right, who wants to read the beginning of the parable, the first 2 verses? Okay, there.
Jesus continued, there was a lamb and 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. So he divided his property between them.
Okay, let's stop a minute. So do you think this is unusual? And Michael has some experience in Israel, but it's probably unusual that he would divide the property between the 2 sons instead of the elder son inheriting it. But I'm thinking this is Jesus' way.
The double portion, and the younger son was being wise to take his portion when he could get it, because if he had any more sons, he'd have to divide it with them.
Okay. But also it could be that Jesus is using, well, we know that he's using the story to teach us a lesson, but in order to teach us this lesson, he had to have this place where the man did divide the property. Or even if it was against the usual inheritance rules, the father could have been very kind-hearted and said, it's not fair that the oldest son is going to inherit everything. I'm going to divide the property between the 2 of them. And of course, that has repercussions when they do that, because then the estates get smaller and smaller. So there is a reason why only the oldest son would get an estate, because then it could be kept intact.
And in many countries, that's the law of the land.
They can't change it.
Scandinavia, and it's that way. I believe England needs to be that way. And I'm sure this is written into the 613 laws that we don't pay attention to.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So anyway, it works for the purpose of the story. And so, Pastor Jim used to always say, a parable is a parable. Don't try to read too much into it. Don't go into every little, like in the one of the seed cast into the good soil and the rocky soil. Don't try to figure out like what are the rocks, what kind of soil is good soil and everything. Just go with the story. What is it trying to teach us? Don't try to pull too much out of it. And so the next verses 13 to 16. Who would like to read that? Question?
No, I said she was reading 13 and 14.
Oh, you want to keep going?
Yes, I will.
There's that paragraph.
Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with honest pigs to eat, but no one gave him anything.
Okay, so we know that the Jews considered pigs unclean, extremely so, and that it would be hard for him to come back and probably even into a Jewish synagogue after that. He'd have to be cleansed, probably have to go through a cleansing process. Which, can you describe that, Michael, what the cleansing was in the Old Testament?
I'm sure that there's a ritual for it.
Yeah, there's
many times.
Falls
you wash
bathing,
your clothes
washing.
and you're unclean until dark.
Yeah. And then, let's see. And I think we know that's part of the problem. Some of the men in the homeless shelter have, at one time they owned a house, They could have gotten into debt, they could have had a serious illness, or they could have squandered their wealth. Not all of them, but some of them. And so I kind of think about that when I read that too. And then my cousin's daughter was addicted to drugs, and when they sent her money out, this was a long time ago, she would just spend it on drugs. So they stopped sending her money, and she was kind of estranged from the family. So in a way, she was like the prodigal son or the prodigal daughter. And then eventually she came back. She got treatment. She got out of the drug business, and she's a family member in good standing now, and everybody's happily ever after, as far as I know. I haven't talked to the cousin for a while. All right, 17 to 20. I'll read that part. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father." So I like the part about where he came to his senses. What does that mean to you?
You get fed and get taken care of.
Right. I kind of think of it like an aha moment. I could have had a B.A. Or something. I could go back and work for my father. I'll just be humble and go back. So I like the term "came to his senses." Anybody else want to talk about that?
I think that's an idiom, because I know in some translations he came to himself.
Yeah, came to himself. Yeah, that was good. I looked that up before, but I didn't have it right now. Yeah, came to himself. And some people say you have to find yourself. So maybe that's where he found himself. In the
And he
pigsty.
realized that even his father's lowest servants were doing better than what he was.
Yeah. And sometimes we might find ourselves in the pigsty. We might be like, why did I do that? I got myself into so much trouble, and that was stupid, and I shouldn't have done it. How did I end up in this pigsty, and how do I get out of it? And then the next part, let's see, so, okay, now the next part is the father. So who wants to read that part? The next paragraph down to 24. Okay, Linda.
But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But the father said to his servants, "Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." So they began to celebrate.
Okay, good. So that's where he's revivified. He's brought back to life. So do you think this is the turning point when the son confesses to his father and says, "I have sinned"? Or is it the turning point when he's in the pigsty? What's the turning point?
When he came to himself.
What, Michael?
When he came to himself.
Yeah. I think in AA, I haven't been to very many, only one meeting, but the part of the program, some of you might be more familiar, is to right the wrongs that you've committed, go to the person and confess. Isn't that right? For AA. So that's kind of important that he does confess to his father. So yeah, the Bible study book said the turning point was when he came to his senses. But I think it's also important that he did confess to his father, because what if he left that out? What if he just came back to his father and his father welcomes him and there's no confession or forgiveness or anything? It wouldn't make as good of a story. But it happens sometimes, that people do wrong you, do something to hurt you, and then they come back, but they don't recognize what they've done. They don't say they're sorry. You still take them back?
The circle hasn't been completed for the sinner. Yes, we would still take them back, but the sinner, in order to feel complete again, would need to confess to the person.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. And then in church, we confess our sins. And I don't know, I think maybe I don't stop and think about all the sins I'm confessing, just kind of in general, I've done wrong. But maybe we should be more specific about what we've done. Michael?
I will not necessarily forget when it's I'm sorry. There's no thought behind it. They don't care about it. I've been seriously hurt. And, you may still have to work things out. But on the same basis, even with the corporate confession, I'm not going to confess those things. Those are not the things that God's laid on my heart that are my sin. Because I'm not really doing all of those. I mean, I certainly have some, but I'm really grateful for a moment of silence so we can consider that.
Yeah, that's good. It's harder to forgive someone if they don't confess, but it's still possible, I think.
You can forgive them, but don't forget.
Yeah.
You're not reconciled.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of the confession. And you really did think about it. And on this story, the young man said, I've sinned against God as well as against you. And even with David and Bathsheba, he doesn't feel like he's sinned against Bathsheba, but he has sinned against God.
Good point. I've sinned against heaven. Yes. Good point, Michael. Okay, and then, so we're at 25, right? Yeah. Okay, who wants to read 25 to the end? Okay.
Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him, what's going on? Your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became very angry and refused to go in, so his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours squandered your property with prostitutes and comes home, you killed the fattened calf for him. My son, the father said, you are always with me and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and was alive again. He was lost and was found.
Okay, so what does the father do to welcome his son back? How does the son know he's welcomed back? What signs? What? Yeah, the calf, the fatted calf. So I guess that would be like veal. They just keep the calf in a little pen so it can't get any exercise, and they feed it so it's all nice and tender, and I think that's how they raise veal, which is why I don't eat veal, and I think it's cruel, but it's, it was a custom, and still is. Ring, yes, the ring and the robe and the sandals. He was probably barefoot when he came back.
And the kiss and the hug.
Yeah, I was going to say the kiss and the hug, the big welcome, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
But,
Especially if he smells like a pig.
Yeah, I was going to say, first take a bath, and then I'm going to give you a robe.
But I was just thinking, his father was probably shocked, but for how long he probably thought the son was dead. He had no idea where he was. that's probably a horrible feeling for him for a long time. And just, you're here, you're alive, you're actually here. Yeah, that was
Shock.
well, and I think that was a big welcome in addition to a celebration. But just the father could have said, get out of here. You left, that's it. I don't need you.
You got your inheritance?
Go. Yeah, that's what you want. You left, fine.
Or maybe something in between. He could have hired him as a servant and just kind of treated him badly. Or
You're not my son anymore.
They're not treated him badly, just treated him
Indifferent.
like everybody else.
Yeah, indifferent, yeah. And Pastor Jim used to talk about a painting. I don't think I've ever seen it. Maybe I have, but I have that vision in my mind of what it looks like, where the father's up on this high hill and looking out over the path up to his estate and everything. And off in the distance, he sees the sun coming way far away. So the sun is like about this big, and the father's about this big in the painting because he's in the foreground. And I like that image. The father's waiting for him to come back. The Bible doesn't say that, but that's in this painting. He's just goes to that top of that peak, not real big mountains in Israel, I don't think, but he goes to the top of that hill and watches for him every day. And I kind of did that when my cat ran away. I kept going to the spot where she had been seen by someone, but never found her. But that's different. So anyway, I have that picture. Anybody else have a picture like that too? The father watching, or you think the father was like sitting there having his cup of coffee and he's back?
It matches his attitude. As soon as he did show up, he was getting everything.
Yeah. So
But
it's
he didn't
dancing.
really give him everything because he told the other son that was so angry, and I understand the anger. Everything I have is yours. What does that mean?
That means that everything that's left
Is his.
is the prodigal.
State.
Yeah, the son,
Yeah.
the prodigal doesn't get any more inheritance.
Yeah. Yeah. And it says that he squandered the property of prostitutes. And so who do you think the older brother represents?
The church,
Okay.
the synagogues, the Pharisees, I've done everything that I'm supposed to do, and you're celebrating with this nearly less. All of us.
All of us? Yeah. And then this is kind of a story without ending because we have to kind of assume everybody lived happily ever after. But what could have happened?
Father dies, the older son says, get out.
Yeah. Or that there was friction after that too between the older son and the younger son, and that they never got along and they were always fighting, or kind of like Cain and Abel. One might have killed the other.
Probably a lot depends on how sincere that confession was. Because if there's really truly been a change of heart, then the older brother's going to see it. Same way that we see lives changed by Jesus. And then he might realize that, hey, even though he still lived at the Father's house, he's not of the Father's character.
Mm-hmm.
And the generosity of the Father and the sincerity of the confession might bring about reconciliation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else?
I've always wondered why the older brother why his father didn't go out and bring him home early, but it sounds like he just had the party and the older brother.
Yeah. Why didn't they send the servant out to tell him? Yeah, we're gonna have a party. Your brother's back. Yay. Yeah, good, Jane. I was thinking that too. And the fact, like what Michael was saying, that he did, in verse 18, he did say he was going to tell his father, I've sinned against heaven and earth. But it doesn't really say that that was his feeling. But it says he came to himself.
And he said to him in 21, so at least he had
Yeah, he said it, yeah. But you could almost turn it around and say that he just thought, well, if I tell my father that, then I'll get to come home. He doesn't really say he believed it. But I think he believed it. I think he really repented. Because that's the point of Jesus' story. What, Michael?
He came to himself, I think that's the
Yeah.
implication.
Yeah. And you could, you know, interpret this different ways, but I like to think about what did Jesus mean by it? What was Jesus trying, why did he tell us the story? And so we have forgiveness and grace. So not only did the Father forgive him, but what part shows the grace?
He forgave the son. That he forgave the younger son.
Yeah. So he forgave him, but also does grace always have to?
He made him obviously a part of the family.
Yeah. The robe and the ring and the sandals and the feast and the party, you know, the joy, like with the coin and the sheep, the joy that the Father felt. And some of you probably have stories about your kids or somebody you know that came back into the fold and that you had great joy, and that. But I just hope we don't give up on people. You know, even like some of the men at the shelter, you know, they're still using drugs and they're still getting into trouble, but there's still hope too. There's hope that they can come back and come to themselves. And some of them have been through treatment and then they, what's it called, backslide, relapse, yeah. But we shouldn't give, I don't think we should give up on anyone, pretty much. But maybe serial killers, put them away, but we don't want to give up completely.
I see that even with the anger as the older brother had, that I think that he could still see what his dad was doing for his younger brother. And he'd come around because he's got the same love from his dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. So, let's see, what does AI say about forgiveness? Father's unconditional love. So it's not conditioned on his repentance necessarily, although you could disagree with me on that. But it represents God's grace, that he loved us even when we were sinners. He loved us even before we confess. He loves us even when we don't realize we're doing wrong. God's unconditional love. Repentance and redemption. So the younger son's return symbolizes repentance and the hope for redemption. So he was hoping he could be redeemed and accepted back into the fold, into the family. And it's never too late to seek forgiveness and start over again. So even if I have wronged someone and I'm like, they're never going to forgive me, I give up, just go my own way, maybe there's still a chance. Jealousy and self-righteousness. So who was that, the jealousy and self-righteousness?
So it's a lesson to the older brother. A lesson the older brother also has to learn to forgive.
Yes. Yeah, he needed to have grace and forgiveness. Yeah. So the older brother's reaction highlights the human tendency towards jealousy and self-righteousness, and the father's response underscores the importance of compassion and understanding. Overall, the parable illustrates the boundless nature of divine love and the importance of welcoming those who have strayed back into the fold. So you see, AI can look at things from a Christian standpoint. That was because I like it, because instead of looking at all these different Bible study commentaries, AI will just take care of it and come up with some things. I had it do one where it summarized all the parables of Jesus and give the Bible verse for them, which I couldn't gone to the library, gotten a book, or found it online if I searched long enough, but it took like 2 minutes, because there it was. And I haven't printed it out yet, but I can do it anytime. So what do you think about AI now?
helpful to
It
you.
could be helpful. Yeah. It's also very dangerous, I admit that. And
I'd say it's a good starting spot. The whole purpose of the parables is to think about. And so if the machine spits it out for you, when you haven't thought about it still.
yeah, but it gave me some new things to think about too. I've been thinking about it. I really like these parables. And then in our women's group, we read a book about it's a lesbian pastor, and she had a whole chapter in her book about the lost sheep. So and the lost parables. That's where I got that phrase, the lost chapter of Luke. So yeah, I've been thinking about it a long time, and I think it'll be something I need to look at over and over again. And probably you feel that way too, probably, of these particular parables. And then, let's see, and I got everything. Resilience, diligence, let's see, how, yeah, so it must have been hard to find the lost sheep. You know, if he had to go out into the fields and look for it. It wasn't just like, oh, there it's wandering away, I'm going to go bring it back. But he had to go out into the fields to find it. And maybe, you know, it was hard work to find it. So that's about, oh, it's time to go to church. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I enjoy talking about this. And I think that the more people, or not the more people, I like small groups, but the more you can talk about it with other people. I think. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.